Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
Hi there, it's Scott McKenzie with Industrial Talk Podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. You know that I'm the industrial cheerleader. This is where we celebrate those industrial professionals, those companies that get it done. And thank you very much for joining. Today is Halloween, and another week has gone by. As I get older, I find that weeks go by faster, and I'm not sure why. I don't know what the physics behind that is, but it goes by fast. We've got a great episode this week. So great that I was nervous even interviewing this gentleman. His name is Matt Ward. But before I go into that interview, I want to give an analogy before I introduce this gentleman. It is Halloween, and we know Halloween. And we know when we were kids, we would go around the neighborhood. And I grew up in a small neighborhood in California, and it's in the middle of the desert. The town's name is Barstow, California. Wonderful people. Very tight-knit community, but we would go around the neighborhood and we would know, and we got the costumes and all good. But what was always amazing to me would be the ability to be able to network with those individuals that were walking around. And I'm using today's vernacular, shall we say. They always knew the homes that gave the big candy bars out. And even before you even started, somehow, some way, you knew that you were going to find that house, and then just the information alone with that network would just spread, saying, "Oh my gosh, that house is cool." 1, 2, they're giving out great candy bars. But the other thing, the other side of that coin would always be, don't go to that house. First off, because they give you the popcorn balls, and you didn't like popcorn balls. Come on, you wanted the candy bar. That's what Halloween was all about, was getting that candy and scoring that candy and getting a bunch of it. And so it was always funny to me because, and there was always those families too that had it's sugar. So I want to make sure that I give them toothpaste and a toothbrush to make sure that they brush their teeth after they eat all that great candy. And you didn't go to that house either, or you did, but you weren't excited. Let's put it that way. So the analogy is that first off, you always went to that house that over-delivered your customer service, and the product was just awesome. And it was always that big candy bar. No less. Matt Ward on episode 23, this one coming up, he over-delivers in this interview, and his product, he just gives. And honestly, personally, for me personally, I'm honored to have him on, but I was a bit nervous because his credentials are far greater than mine, shall we say. And let's just sort of go down that road. Matt was a founder of Breakthrough Champion, where he helps small business owners and employees break through those traditional barriers by inspiring them, and he'll inspire you in this interview. He just has this passion to help people, and I got to tell you, when I was on his podcast, he sent me a handwritten thank you note, which just I remember receiving it, and I'm going, oh my gosh, what's this in the mail? Because I never liked the mail, but here it is. I've got this handwritten thank you note from Matt Ward saying, "Hey, Scott, thank you for being on my podcast." He's that type of guy. And I remember running around the house going, look at this guy. He has given me a handwritten thank you note. And from that point on, I realized that gentleman is something different. Outside the simple fact that all of a sudden he throws down the gauntlet and I've got to start doing that, which I'm an abysmal failure, but he is somebody that I look up to. And so here's Matt. He's passionate about helping people and employees and owners, and he understands how good success tastes. So this week's podcast highlights Mr. Matt Ward. Please enjoy the interview. Scott McKenzie with Industrial Talk Podcast. I am so pleased to have a wonderful individual by the name of Matt Ward join us this week. Hey, Matt, how are you doing?
I'm great, Scott. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I appreciate it.
Definitely a pleasure all mine. We've been talking a lot about you and what you've got going and all that fun stuff. Tell us a little bit about yourself there, Matt.
So I'm a converted website agency owner. I now travel the country as a professional keynote speaker, talking about taking charge with chocolate and taking action in your business and your personal life.
Chocolate. Talk to me about chocolate. What do you mean?
Chocolate.
I love it.
Well, sir, I'm originally from Hershey, Pennsylvania, Chocolatetown, USA. And I spent 7 years of my life growing up there. I go back every single year. I love it. My first job was at the Orchard. My second one was at Hershey Park. I was a games host. So
but
a lot of fun
how do you roll in chocolate with your business passion? I don't get the connection, or is it just because you were from Hershey?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that. But what a lot of people don't know is that Milton Hershey himself, the guy that created the chocolate bar and really put chocolate on the map, was quite the failure at business. They look at this big chocolate magnate, this guy that created this Fortune 500 company, and they don't realize that was his fourth attempt at business. He had filed bankruptcy with 2 previous candy companies. And so that was his fourth attempt at getting on the map. And, he came from a broken home. His dad was a failure in business. And so he had a lot of trials and tribulations, which many small business owners have. I've had them myself. And I think a lot of times with small business owners, they get kind of beat up. They come out of the corporate world where perhaps they weren't necessarily meant to be an employee, and they started their own business, and they end up launching this business and kind of flying by the seat of their pants and trying to learn as they go. And because, what is it? 90% of small business owners fail within the first 5 years. It's horrific numbers. And so I believe that one of the core principles behind those failures is lack of action and a strong sense of procrastination within business owners and employees. And I just believe that if that is addressed, that there will be far many more successful businesses out there on the market.
You're trying to move that needle from 90%, maybe 89 to zero. You just keep on pushing.
My mission is to eliminate procrastination from the world of business.
But do you think procrastination is the sort of silver bullet in the success of a business?
I do. I feel like there's so much that people avoid doing in business as a whole. It could be the littlest thing that has the biggest impact. They have this idea, but they think, oh, well, it won't do so good. So they just avoid testing the market with it. They avoid creating a prototype. They avoid showing it to their potential buyers or their customers now who buy from them. And as such, they're afraid of failure and afraid of being persecuted, afraid of it, having opinions made about them. And they're just frankly afraid of all of this stuff that they just don't do it. And it becomes paralysis by analysis.
So you're saying that procrastination is, well, the root of procrastination is just the fear of whatever, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of whatever. No.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. And so there are sort of what I have determined to be 5 key traits that business owners have, that if I have found that if they do these things, they have much greater success in their business and, frankly, in their life.
And that 5 key traits associated with procrastination?
Yes.
Okay.
To eliminate and solve procrastination. So number 1 is know your why. It's not really like, why do you procrastinate or anything? It's like, why do you need to take this action? Why do you need to do this basic little task? So it's, why do I need to send this email, right? And I'm not talking about this big lofty goal that you need to do, like buy a house or buy a new building, for example. I'm talking about your daily routine. So know why you need to do what you want to do, because otherwise you build this list. You ever have that to-do list, Scott?
Yeah, it's called OneNote, and it just keeps on expanding.
Yeah, because it doesn't get dealt with, right? No. And it get certain things on that list get avoided. And if you just literally do those things and understand why they need to be done, you'll have greater success in actually doing them. I'm not saying you'll be successful at them. I'm just saying you'll be successful at dealing with them.
What about, and we're just at one, and we're going to cover the 5 key points, and this thought came to mind there, Matt. What about just general market conditions? Let's say I'm a horse trader, and we live in the world of cars, and it's just the market that just dies. What about something like that? No matter how much work I do and lack of procrastination, I trade horses in a market that's autos.
Well, but your market is the horse market, right? I mean, even when horses carried people around, there might have been more horses or less cars, but today horses still exist. This is not a market condition issue. If you want to change the direction of your business, then your list will contain things that help you change the direction of your business. If you want to grow your business and you want to make more money or grow your business in the horse trading or horse moving business, whatever it is you're in, then your list will be related to those things, whether it's marketing your business, whether it's, gaining additional inventory of horses to move that thing. It just doesn't, it's not necessarily about the market conditions. That exterior factors come up a lot when people talk about the things that aren't getting done. This has been a disruptive society for ages. And we still talk about the older generations and how they used to do things and how the new generation is different in a lot of ways. That's all baloney, right? Because the society was a disruptive society some time ago when Ford decided to put a car on the street versus a horse, right? So it was disruptive. And now they're talking about whether it be Airbnb or Uber or Lyft and how they're disruptive. At the end of the day, the technology is moving along, society is moving along. And so even in the industrial space, technology has had an impact on it. It's whether or not you choose to embrace it or use it and how you want to use it to your advantages. Nobody is saying that you have to bring the technology behind Uber into your industrial business. But we are saying that you need to be aware of what's happening in your own space and choose to make a difference or choose to stay the course. Either way, you just can't procrastinate.
You bring up a good point, and I think that from an industrial perspective, I notice in your bio you talk about small business, and the industrial space is full of small business owners providing some service, some equipment, whatever it might be. And is there a recommendation from your perspective, understanding to a certain extent the industrial market, and I'm a small business owner, and I'm grappling with, this is how I've done it forever, I'm grappling with that. How do I change? How do I become, in my business, a little bit more disruptive, whatever it might be? What do I do?
So the first thing, I go back to that point of know your why. I want you to know your goal. But, one of the other 5 points is to face fear. And that's the third point. Before I jump to that, number 2 is know the negative results of inaction. So when you were talking about shifting industries or technologies or disruptiveness in the industry, if you make the decision to stay with the horses rather than go with the cars, you just need to understand what the negative results of that is. But also the fact that you're sitting here and not doing anything, what I really need you to understand is that there's a negative result to not acting, right? Because if you act and you act quickly and you're wrong, you can pivot. You can make changes. You have time to do that. If you fail to make a decision to act, then when you do make that decision and it's the wrong one, you may not have enough time to recover. That's how a lot of businesses go out of business.
That's
right?
Powerful. Yep.
So at the end of the day, how do you how do you really take more action? Is you face fear. It's like you were 5 again, and you and your buddy were sitting in the playground, and you decided, you know what, Scott? We're gonna have a stare down competition. Just me and you. Stare it down. First person to move or blink loses. That's how fear works. People hate fear. There's an acronym out there that I've seen this before. False expectations appearing real. It's completely false. This stuff is all made up in your head. It's head trash, right? Salespeople deal with this all the time. A lot of business owners deal with the fact that it's called imposter syndrome. Do I belong here, right? Am I good enough? At the end of the day, that's all fear, and it's all false. If you stare it down, if you think about what your goal is and put that at the forefront of your mind, you're going to be more successful in having it back down, because it will always back down. Always back down if you stay in that staring contest long enough for it to back down.
I like the analogy, my friend.
That's the key, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, in the fourth puzzle piece of solving the procrastination puzzle, is to be proactive. See, the quicker you take action, the easier it gets over time. Right? Because it becomes a habit, and things that you do habit and repetitiously, they become easier to do. And so, I'm not a guy that works out. And so for me to go work out, I have one of those gym memberships that I never use, but it's really hard for me to go there and work out. But that's why they say you have to do this for like whatever it is, 12 times in a row or
Right.
12 weeks in a row, whatever the number is, because then it becomes a habit, right? I have no problem habitually stuffing a piece of pizza in my mouth because I'm really good at that. But I just you have to be proactive at making these things happen. And so if you're a list builder, you write down a to-do list, then you have to be proactive about getting that list done before you leave for the day. And if you can't, then maybe there's things on that list that shouldn't be on that list, right? And being proactive is all about taking action before others and yourself expect you to. Because if you just put things down on a list, you're not being proactive. You're being proactive when you actually do that item on the list, right? And sometimes I've been asked, "Oh, well, what about this thing that I don't really want to do that other people tell me I have to do?" That's not taking action, right? Taking action is the stuff that you need to do, the stuff that you want to do, It's not stuff that's imposed by other people on you, right? So if I said, Scott, you need to grow some hair, well, you might be perfectly happy being a bald guy, right? Why do you
Yeah, I am just ecstatic about being a bald guy, and no matter how hard I wish I could grow hair, but that ain't gonna be the case.
Yeah, and I'm getting there, but I'm a big guy, right? I carry myself big. I'm like 300 plus pounds, and so people might say, well, how come you haven't lost weight if you're out there talking about action? Well, you know what? Because I'm happy the way I am. That's not taking action or avoidance or procrastinating. I'm only procrastinating from something that I want to do that I'm not doing. Right. That's the key. And many small business owners want to have certain things. They want to have revenue goals. They want to have additional salespeople. They want to have more time off. They want to have the ability to sell their business when it comes time. All these things are the higher 50,000-foot things, but you have to break them down into small, tiny little tasks and goals. And so that's how it gets moving in the right direction.
And what's the fifth point? I'm just dying to ask some questions, and you're just rifling them out. Go.
Fifth point. This is the one is like I like to say it's the butter on your bread, the lime in your coconut. There's a sponsor.
That's right. You. There you go, man. I remember that one.
Yin to your yang. It's accept failure.
Big time.
You see, failing. I mean, almost everyone I know hates failing. It's depressing and demoralizing. But it actually doesn't feel that way if you practice failing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a guy that, and I can't remember what it was. I don't know if it was a conversation, but he would just go out and fail. He would intentionally fail and do things that he knew that he was going to get rejected. And he would go to in front of people and say, "Hey, I need your wallet. You need to give me my wallet." And they're going to say, "No." And then he'd feel it. And then after a while, it's like, I failed.
It never became a problem.
It never became a problem.
If you're a salesperson, you might know how many no's it takes to get a yes. That's a perfect example of accepting failure.
Yeah.
I see this all the time in the world of small business, where the little things that make sense to them don't realize that they're already practicing accepting failure. Like as a business owner, if we try a new product line or a new service and we release it to the market and it doesn't work, like, okay, that sucks, right? But we have to accept that it failed. We have to ask ourselves a number of questions as to how we got there and what do we do now. And then we have to be okay and learn from that. Like because if we just sit here in our misery, then what happens? Then we procrastinate from making all the other sales calls we have to make, from making all the other employee-related decisions we have to make, from dealing with accounts payable and accounts receivable and finance and building management and all these other things. We just become woe is me, and that's not how we operate as small business owners. It's not what is successful.
No, see, those are. I'm going to summarize real quick. Know your why. Know the negative results of inaction. Face your fears. Be proactive. And I've got this one down pat. Accept failures. I'm not a failure, but I accept failures. So that's a great point. And you bring up one very valid point right there, Scott. There's a guy famous in small business by the name of Richard Exley who was quoted as saying, "Failing does not make you a failure. Yeah.
Refusing to try again does." And that's a key point.
And that is it's huge because so I don't even know what the percentage is, but I'm sure somebody out there I'm sure I can get online and find the percentage, but the people who actually fail and then stop. It's like that's the permanent decision to a temporary problem. It's like just get up, wipe off your knees and get moving and do it again. And the people within the industrial space, I guarantee you they've experienced a tremendous amount of failure and ups and downs and risks and all that good stuff. I'm gonna shift real quick because I still want to go down this, but I've just got to ask the question: why are you so passionate about this stuff?
So I think for me, what I got to a point in my life where I was doing a mundane task. There was actually this guy that a client of mine had booked to speak, and he talked about breaking out of your comfort zone and doing things different, sort of painting outside the lines. And he's an artist, and he's a keynote speaker, and he gives away art. And one of the things he does is these social media sort of like geocache and art hunts, and you can't buy his art. And so there was a situation where he was at a conference, and he said to the conference attendees, "I'm going to give away this art painting tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Check out Twitter for clues." And of course, I'm not there. I'm in Massachusetts, and he's in Las Vegas at this conference. And I literally watched his Facebook feed fill up with people that said, "Drop it on my back door in New Orleans, Louisiana. Drop it on my front porch in Miami." And I literally got so enraged that people will literally ask for something to be given to them without even remotely trying to work for it. And most of the people that would get his art would be from a conference attendee type of person, or they'd win it in a lottery or an auction or something. And they have one or two. But I have 11 of these things because I tracked them all down in all parts of the country. And I would literally call up 24-hour Starbucks people in Seal Beach, California at 4 a.m. in the morning and say, oh, there's a Marilyn Monroe painting across the street from me. If you get it for me, I'll give you $200. Because I cared. They didn't care about the art because they don't know the connection to the fact that his message is to be different. And I knew the connection, and I didn't have a Marilyn Monroe. So to me, $200 was nothing. So I got somebody at a coffee shop to get it, and then they take it to the UPS store, and I PayPal them the money, and the guy at UPS sends it to me on my billing account. And I end up with 11 of these paintings. And so the thing that I realized rather quickly was people were just willing to give up, like you talked about. They'd say, oh, I didn't get the one in Seal Beach, California, so I'm not going to try for the one in Boston, Massachusetts, or the one in Miami, or the one in Oklahoma. And I can assure you, Scott, and all your listeners of the Industrial Talk podcast, that I tried for many paintings that I did not get. Many of them. But I consistently kept going back to the well. And it is deflating to a degree when your person, your runner, the person who agreed to go get it, literally gets there 2 minutes after somebody else got the painting. That alone is depressing, not just for me, but for the person standing there looking at the other person holding the painting. But yet we tried again and again and again. We never gave up. Why would you give up?
So you're just passionate. You're just you've set your goal. You've said, hey, I'm gonna get these paintings. But that just sounds like with anything in your sphere, I think this is the right and I guess I'm the same way. But when you think, and I always call it drinking my own Kool-Aid. When I think that something is like, yeah, I'm on it, and I'm not going to stop drinking this Kool-Aid until whenever, I just keep on going. I find that people in general just give up too soon, and that whole opportunity that they're waiting for is just right there, but they just give up too soon, or they get deflated, or they get, and it's woe is me, and the wonderful thing about, you know as well as I do about podcasts, you get to talk to people who have failed, who've got back up and failed again, and they keep on going, and they have that positive attitude, and they would, whatever it might be, they just keep on moving forward and forward and forward, and it's energizing. And so you're just like, that's it, man. I'm going to get that painting. Oh, it didn't go. I know there's another one over here. I'm going to go get that.
Yeah. And I learned from it, right? So the real question is, and I learned this from a business coach many years ago in my web agency, which was, you got to ask yourself 4 questions after you do anything in life or business. And the 4 questions are, what did I do right? Number 2 is, what did I do wrong? Number 3 is, would I do it again? And number 4 is, if so, what would I do differently? So what I do right, maybe I didn't have enough people calling the people around the area to try and get the artwork. But this goes, let's take this back to business, because that's just art chasing. That's just fun stuff, right? And a lot of people can't see the correlation to business with that. But let's talk about the industrial space. Let's talk about, I'm a company that is involved in bridge reconstruction, right?
Right.
And so I've got, iron or whatever services it is that I offer, and I need to connect with X person. I know who that person is. I've called to the company. No luck. Now I ask myself, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? Would I do it again? What would I do differently? That's the key question, because I got to find out what I said that was good and what I maybe said that wasn't so good. And then I ask myself, would I do it again? And then the fourth thing is, what would I do differently? Maybe I got to find this company, and this contact goes to a trade show. All right. So do I walk the trade show, or do I buy a booth at the trade show? And how do I ensure that I'm able to connect with this person? How do I build a LinkedIn connection that gets me an introduction to this person? There's so many different ways you could get to this contact, right? But you have to know what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong to ensure that you want to continue to do this similarly in a different way the next time. And I think that is the key behind feeling like you're successful. feeling like you're not failing all the time is trying to reinvigorate the idea. You know, in my web agency, we built the software system for realtors years ago. And our pre-research said the exact quote was, at that price, it's a no-brainer. That was the exact quote from the realtors that we tested it with. Went to market. We didn't sell a single one at $19 a month.
No way.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How does that even happen? Ever since then, we've consistently said, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? Will we do it again? And if so, what will we do differently?
You can't let that dangle. What eventually happened to that program?
We still have that software on the shelf to this day, and we are consistently looking for new opportunities every month, every quarter, every year to figure out how we can modify that software and turn it into something that would work effectively. Maybe
so it's just,
not the
like you said, it's
market.
on the shelf, and you're just waiting for that opportunity.
And we have not thrown out the baby with the bathwater, and we always ask ourselves when an idea comes up with that software, how do we want to make that work, right? When I do my corporate keynote speeches around the country, whether it's for corporations or associations, I always look at, when I got there, when I'm done, when I get on the plane to go home, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What could would I do it again? And if so, what would I do differently? And sometimes maybe the answer is I wouldn't do anything differently, because you don't have to find a problem with something, right? But this is what helps you take more action and move forward, right? Because you can't just, if you're not continuously improving, and this stuff isn't hard stuff, and it doesn't take a lot of time. All it takes is a repetition. That's why the chocolate thing, right? That's the tie-in with the chocolate, is that there's a mantra that I offer to people that they can use if they want, called But First Chocolate. And it's 3 words, But First Chocolate, which basically means but first my goal, right? And I correlate that back to the fact that Milton Hershey failed so many times, but yet he always remained focused on his goal, which was chocolate, right? What many people have no idea about is that Milton Hershey and his wife couldn't have kids. And so 40 years before his death, he put his entire fortune into a trust fund to live forever in perpetuity. And with that trust fund, he founded a private tuition-free boarding school for orphans, disadvantaged, and poverty-stricken kids. And over 10,000 kids have attended that school called the Milton Hershey School. It's in Hershey, Pennsylvania, including me.
Yeah, it's moving.
I went to that school.
Wow.
And for me, that school taught me perseverance, like how to drive through. And that's what Milton Hershey was, right? And so you look at the core essence of the man and what he was able to do with a company. He built a town around his employees. He built an amusement park for the employees. He built a hotel to have people come in and visit the area, right? You know, all of that is perseverance. That's what it taught me. I mean, I'm the youngest of 3 boys, the first to graduate high school and the only one not to go to prison.
Oh,
I think I figured out how to be perseverance, right?
Wow.
To have perseverance in my life. And I think that's why there's a tie-in to chocolate. I have an affinity there for it. But to watch that man do something with nothing, continuously fail, persevere, and end up at his goal, which was chocolate, I now teach that to corporate people and basically say, chocolate is your goal. Whatever your chocolate is, that's your why. Why are you doing this? Maybe it's you want more life, more time, more vacations, more, you want to have another annex of your office overseas, or you want to have there's one guy I know that's got like $1 million boat, right? I mean, maybe you want to have that boat. Maybe you want to have 3 houses, whatever it is. That's your chocolate. That's why you do what you do. For some people, it's a lot of family time. For others, it's no family time, right?
Right.
It depends on the family makeup, right?
Right. No.
But at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, is that you're driving to what matters to you.
Let's put it this, I'm a small industrial company and provide industrial labor to the market. And you come on in and you're saying, okay, Scott, let's look at fill in the blanks. How would you start approaching this industrial space and saying, okay, I understand all this. I look at this. I understand the dynamics of the marketplace. And what type of little, pearls of wisdom you can give me so I can steal it and then go on and be and buy that $1 million boat?
Yeah, absolutely. So on my website, your listeners can download the 12 tips to take action now, which is what I call your business recipe. And these tips, also called or referred to as pips, are for business success.
Hold on.
Let me explain.
You got tips and then pips.
Yeah.
Okay,
but a
fantastic.
pip is defined as the square on a chocolate bar, right? So there's a little analogy there, a little fun with it, right? And so there are 12 of those on a Hershey chocolate bar. So that's hence where you get the 12 tips, right? Now, I want to be clear about one thing. As a corporate keynote speaker, I do no coaching, I do no online programs, and I do no consulting. This is what I do. Talk to people, share the message, and really find a way to get people to connect to the message of taking action and how it can improve their business. And if there are businesses that want sort of actionable insight in a day-long session or something, there's a lot of people I know that I can refer to for that. That's not my expertise. See, this is one thing I know that I'm good at and not good at. I am not good at sort of the business coach philosophy of things and sort of following up on that. I'm not a very detail-oriented person. So in my web agency, I surrounded myself with people that could do a lot of it. So I can bring an idea to market and I can get it moving, but I stop at 80% and move on to the next idea because I'm a shiny white object guy,
Yeah, I hear you, and unfortunately I'm the same way. I do get distracted by that shiny object all the time. Now you're out there, you're all over the place. Now this 12 tips to take action is at where?
breakthrough-champion.com. That's my website, breakthrough-champion.com.
And they just go out there and click, and there it goes.
They can
and it's
download it. Just pop in the email address, and it'll be emailed right to you.
So when I do that, I will be in a better position as a company owner and deal with all my procrastination and everything like that. So, and you're also out there on Facebook. You're out there on Facebook, LinkedIn.
I'm on Facebook under Breakthrough Champion, on LinkedIn under Matt Ward. You can find me out there on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on that. I write blogs all the time on my website, so you can check that out too. And I'm pretty much all social. I'm on Twitter at Breakthrough Champ. THRU Champ. So
now once again, and this has been an honor, quite frankly, there, Matt. I want to make sure that everybody understands that I was on their podcast, this Square Peg Round Hole podcast. It was an absolutely wonderful experience. And then when Matt reached out to me, and I was absolutely dumbfounded because he's a hero to me, whether I am older and uglier and all that good stuff. But he reached out to me, and I was just absolutely honored because I can truly appreciate what his mission is, his purpose, and the desire to really help people, and especially in this industrial space. I come across people all the time, small business owners. If I go to a trade show, there's a gazillion small business owners trying to make their way, and whatever message you're giving there, Matt, is a phenomenal message. And what I will do is I will be definitely a torchbearer for you and what you've got going and the message you're trying to communicate. And what I think that if anybody gets an opportunity to go out there, you need to download that 12 tips of taking action, because Matt, what you're talking about, that accepting of failure. How do you encourage somebody to get back up?
I think that stories. If most people who believe that they have personally failed believe that they are the only person that has failed, right?
But that's not the truth, because I know I was the only one. You succeed, I fail. Yeah,
that's right. And so what a lot of people don't know about me is Labor Day in 1997, I sold my car on the street of Washington, D.C. for $50. That's what I had in my pocket, and I started over in Massachusetts. And started a web agency in 2002. And started my keynote speaking in 2015. So, it's just been a whirlwind for me. But what happened was at that time in 1997, I was a victim of everyone else's circumstances, a victim of my circumstances, right? I was the type of person that wanted a handout, not a hand up. And I realized rather quickly that if I wanted to break the mold of what I considered to be failure in my lineage of my family, that I needed to do something about that. And I started, surprisingly, I think that this is a key, volunteering. The more you give, the more you get back. The very first, I was volunteering as a football coach. And I was on the board, and I said, hey, why don't we get one of them fandangled website thingamajigs? And they're like, yes, you go do it. And I was like, what? So I called on a friend who volunteered. We did the website together. And next thing you know, I had a parent walk up to me one day on the football field while I was coaching and say, hey, why don't you start a web company? I said, what do I know about that? He said, well, you did our site. I go, oh, so you think I did your site? And my friend did your site. I just project managed it. Huh. So like the next day, I think I had a web company.
There you go.
First website I sold for $500 was to a competing team. They paid me. And I had somebody else do the work because I'm not a designer, and I just I understood where things were going. So I think at the end of the day, the more you volunteer, I'm a big believer in reading and podcasts, both listening to a lot of podcasts. And one of the books I read early on was Keith Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone, which is about the idea of giving without the expectation of getting anything in return. And I believe wholeheartedly that book changed my life. I also believe that the E-Myth Revisited changed my business life.
Yep.
Allows my web agency to run on its own now completely.
Yep.
And at the encouragement of my general manager at my web company, I don't know when it was. Maybe it was like 2012, I think. I attended a course on Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I know that Max Story mentioned that on a previous podcast with you. And I will tell you that the biggest thing I learned from that training session, amongst all the content, lots of great content, but the one thing I learned was the paradigm shift. The paradigm shift is when you are looking at something one way and you are encouraged to look at it from a different perspective. And as I look back on my life, I realized that in 1997, I was asking for a hand out and not a hand up. And now I give a hand up to whoever I can, however I can.
God, see, what fascinates me about the story, your history, is the fact that you were at rock bottom. You were just, it's hard to even be even more so, but you were at rock bottom, and you can still, in this country, be able to turn yourself around, achieve success. It's out there. People like you exist where you're trying to give a hand up and wanting to help, because this is motivating. When business, and there's a ton of businesses out there, they all fail, and to some extent, whatever. And like you said in the beginning of the program, 90% completely fail. It's a fact that they can get back up and do it again, and they're not alone. They're not alone. That it happens all the time.
Jim Rome said you are the equal of your 5 closest people you surround yourself with. And I've just been a big believer in mastermind groups and CEO groups, and now I assure you, I donate. I've got to be about 8 hours a week to just helping people in whatever way I can. Now, I am not. Do not call me to help you move. Like, I will not help you move your house.
That was my next question. Doggone it, Matt.
That does not qualify as helping.
Can you help me replace a carburetor, or I got a big ditch to dig?
Yeah, no, I don't do a lot of manual labor stuff. I'd rather hire that out. However, I was recently asked by a SCORE representative who helps my businesses grow and who has given me advice over the last 8 years to help another small business and walk them through a piece of technology. I recently, somebody said, "Oh, you're automating this with your emails or something?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, and they're a speaker, and I said, "I'm happy to show you." And I booked an hour with them. You know, I don't get paid for these things. This is me giving back. See, I have to look back at what I was given. I was given a life by the man that created the chocolate bar, right? And I have to honor that. I have to honor that, because if I don't honor that, then who am I, right? What have I now done? I've taken, right? I've taken and not benefited. There's a huge difference. And so I look at what he did as a philanthropist with his money. I said, wow, he gave all these kids an opportunity. That's what he gave them. He gave them an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I want to give other business owners an opportunity. And I believe that I, have been put on this earth to help business owners grow in whatever form and fashion that is. I believe that it's through the speaking mechanism and by sharing this procrastination message that people can take more action, and they'll realize greater revenues, greater success, however they deem that, and greater time off from their business. Business owners are often held hostage by their business because we are passionate in general about our business. We will literally sit on the computer until 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, right? Just grinding it out. Never once paying attention to other people in our lives or anything like that. And then we get to the point where we realize, wow, I can't keep living like this. But how is my business going to survive if I stop grinding it until 1 in the morning? Well, I assure you, your business will survive, especially when you prioritize to take action and you don't procrastinate in your daily practice. When you're at work from 8 to 5 or whatever your hours are, if you're avoiding the things that you shouldn't be doing or you don't want to do that you should be doing, then you're going to have a problem getting all the work done in that time frame. But there is a very interesting study that's been out for quite a while that talks about how the time will fill the space it's allotted. Right? It's some sort of Pareto's principle or something like that.
Yeah.
It fills the time the space is allotted. So, I mean, if we allot for a meeting of 1 hour, it fills the time. If we move that meeting to a half hour, it only fills that time, and you are more effective. Hence, in an hour-long meeting that could normally go a half hour, you probably spend the first 15 or 20 minutes procrastinating on getting to the topic.
It's so true.
Right?
Time is so, God, it's that commodity that is gone for good, and if you don't use it right, it's gone.
Yeah.
And you can't get it back. Well, I got to tell you that, Matt, doggone it, Matt, you're an inspiration. And once again, I am very fortunate to be able to have a podcast that I get to speak with a lot of individuals that are just passionate about living and passionate about helping others and really meaning it in their hearts that they want to help. And I really appreciate you reaching out to me. We got to wrap it up because I can talk forever, and I don't think people want to listen forever, but I can really talk forever.
And they want to listen to you. Your listeners love you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I thank you very much, because your message and I don't know, it's moving, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the thing that I want to make sure that there are a lot of business owners out there that listen to the podcast, to this podcast, and I guarantee you they're procrastinating. And they can go out to your website, right? And your website is, again,
breakthrough-champion.com.
That's right. And get information that if anything, improve their current situation even a little bit. It's not even, that's a positive. If it moves them, if it removes some level of procrastination, it's a win. It's a victory. It's something else. And I love the 5 topics there, Matt. Well, we're going to post this out there ASAP. And thank you, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
No,
Thanks
thank
so
you
much,
for
Scott.
reaching out to me. I am
You're my
honored.
hero.
We go to the same barber. That's for doggone sure. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. And hang tight. We'll close this out. Thank you very much. I want to wrap this up, and I want to quickly say thank you once again to Matt Ward for taking time out of his busy schedule to meet with us, to share with us about the principles of procrastination. But I know we do it. Do not deny it. I know you do it out there, too, as well. 2 things that I take away from this particular interview. 1, I want to face fear because that's definitely a daily event, and I want to accept failure and be able to deal with failure. So whatever you do today, whatever you are focused on, I know that it's Halloween. Enjoy. Be safe out there as we should be. Thank you for joining the podcast. I will be with you next week, and be safe and have a wonderful week.